even from those who have strongly disagreed with me. Why? Because Parliament is a place, to me, cathedral of devotion to Canada and its future and its greatness. When the Prime Minister says, the reason we're doing this is because the situation has got out of hand. It's an emergency. I've been watching the Secretary of State as he has his hand up to his face, looking out of one eye. I have watched him. I've wondered what his reaction was. He doesn't want two eyes. He just wants to hear and see freedom brought before the House. I wonder what his attitude is now as he, on several occasions when he stood up in the House and said there was nothing in the argument of the leader of the Grenadiers, that in the province of Quebec, Radio Canada had several in there that were members of the FL2. And I say to him, he knew this at the very time he was denying it in this House. Why weren't proceedings taken? Why weren't Why was it not that proceedings were taken against the wrongdoers in the Organization of Young Canadians? Why? The minister is the one responsible. And on the basis of his record, and I am going to deal in particular with some of those that have the accolades of the government that were actually trying to undermine this country. What about these four in Montreal of the province of Quebec? Were they not brainwashing the people of Canada? Were they not from day to day explaining that all was well? And yet they were kept there. And they were not interfered with. They enjoyed a peculiar protection. I wonder why the Secretary of State didn't act. For I say again, he knew these individuals. Why didn't he act? And when the Prime Minister says, this thing came on us suddenly, in fact, I am tremendously interested in the fact that he had both eyes shut. Not just the one as the Secretary of State. Both ears, as the Prime Minister indicates, shut. Oh, I'm glad he did that. Yes, that's it. Oh, he puts his hand up to his nose, which indicates the stench was too strong for him. Oh, yes. The Prime Minister today says that, well, we had word from the mayor and from Mr. Saulnier. Well, you had that in November of 1969. I've got the book here. It's the dossier. You had this information, the pictures of some of these individuals in it. You had that information. What did you do? You whitewashed it. Sir, these are some of the highlights of the documents that I have here, which represent the summary of the evidence placed before the Committee of Parliament, which clearly established that there were in the Organization of Young Canadians, in the Company of Young Canadians, those who were advocating the end of government by force. Let me read from this. One is entitled The Revolutionary Strategy, because apparently the government never read about this. They had the evidence before them. What is happening in the province of Quebec? was before the government of Canada in November and December of 1969, and that government did nothing about it. Revolutionary Strategy is a document outlining in detail the tactics, organization, and methods for seizing power by force in the province of Quebec. Says, among quotes, there are only two strategies, electoral strategy and revolutionary strategy. Real independence is inseparable from global revolution, and its conquest demands always and everywhere a war to the end against imperialism, as in Vietnam and Guatemala. Another quote, let us profit by the lessons of history since the Russian Revolution in 1917 to work for an authentic revolution, organizing a base whereby through revolutionary action itself we shall come to count only on our own power, ability, and creativity. Another quote, since 1963, the explosion of the first FL-2 bomb, we are in the first phase of the revolutionary struggle, which will keep up until agitation becomes general. And what do they do about it? Nothing. Excepting the Prime Minister's attitude, his refined attitude of pinching his nose. I'm surprised that he just took that attitude. The second stage, I asked the Prime Minister, did he ever read the recommendations that were made by the City of Montreal? Why didn't he act? What's the answer? Oh, you had somebody else do it. Surely the Department of Justice didn't conceal from the Prime Minister this evidence of revolutionary conduct? Oh, I know this hurts, but it has to be proceeded. The second stage of the battle, and I'm quoting, if we wish to attain the objectives, we must organize the masses in local committees or professional liberation committees in each quarter. Organization of those who are exploited must be undertaken, having in mind the popular insurrection characterized by armed occupation, armed is underlined, of universities, schools, public services, and national territory. The most difficult phase of the struggle, the armed conflict between the people and its enemies, must be inseparably a military and political struggle. And then, what it says about the government of the right honourable gentleman? Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I found that the Prime Minister always finds it necessary when I begin to deal with facts to leave the House, and I don't mind him following his usual course. But
Speaker, I'd like to point out to the member that I was very willing to listen to him, but if he's going to read nonsense in this way,
if I read nonsense, he won't listen. Well, it came from the very people in Montreal that he's now listening to. Isn't it a strange thing? Trying to pretend that what is happened has suddenly developed. Let me go on. Violence and illegality are absolutely normal for revolutionaries. These are the instructions in this Canadian organization. Don't be afraid of being illegal. Violence is absolutely necessary. Let the Black Panthers, all the revolutionary groups, and there are several,